And we now know what Mitt Romney is going to do after he loses the presidential election. That man is going to be a new age motivational speaker, waking you up to the power of dreamers.
In America, individuals pursuing their dreams in various ways, their happiness in the ways they chose, would lead to enterprises being built, some successful, some not, but overall, the economy would be lifted by free people pursuing their dreams. These dreamers have been crushed over the last 3.5 years. This is a time for us to reignite, rekindle the power of dreamers, to welcome dreamers here from other nations that come here legally, to have people in our own nation.
I guarantee you heard it here first. Alex Wagner, you heard it here first. The Power of Dreamers will be the title of the self-help, get-rich-quick book that Mitt and Ann Romney will co-author during the 5th year of the Obama presidency. Today, Mitt Romney chased President Obama to Lorain County, Ohio, where the president spoke yesterday. Regular guy, Mitt Romney, tried to play the Simon Cowell judge of the political game show, Who is the Real Regular Guy?
This is a president who doesn't understand, I don't think, exactly what the American people are experiencing. He needs to sit down with folks.
On Fox News this morning, Romney was asked to respond to this comment President Obama made yesterday.
Somebody gave me an education. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Michelle wasn't. But somebody gave us a chance. Just like these folks up here are looking for a chance.
I'm certainly not going to apologize for my dad and his success in life. He was born poor. He worked his way to become very successful despite the fact that he didn't have a college degree. And one of the things he wanted to do was provide for me and for my brother and sisters. I'm not going to apologize for my dad's success. But I know the president likes to attack fellow Americans. He's always looking for a scapegoat, particularly those that have been successful like my dad. And I'm not going to rise to that.
Mitt Romney is, of course, lying about his father being born poor. We'll have more on that in a moment. The new NBC News Wall Street Journal poll out tonight shows Mitt Romney losing to President Obama by 6 points in a head-to-head matchup, with President Obama at 49 and Mitt Romney at 43. Like previous polls, it shows Mitt Romney getting crushed on the questions relating to who understands regular guys. Asked who is the better choice when it comes to looking out for the middle class, 48% say President Obama, 27% say Mitt Romney. Asked who is the better choice when it comes to caring about average people, 52% say President Obama, 22% say Mitt Romney. And asked who is compassionate enough to understand average people, 52% say President Obama, 23% say Mitt Romney, and none say, what does average people mean? Joining me now are Alex Wagner, the host of MSNBC's Now with Alex Wagner, and Steve Kornacki, a political columnist for Salon and an MSNBC political analyst, and an average person. Was that the phrase in the poll thing? Average people?
Average people are born and die, and that way, I don't know, Lawrence, who's more compassionate?
As the only person here born with a silver spoon anywhere near her, I know Carl Wagner.
Oh, wow.
No, I was born with, I believe, a wooden spoon, one of those things that used to come with the ice cream.
I was born with a fistful of smashed peas, Lawrence.
This regular guy competition is not going well.
It's a terrible idea if you're Mitt Romney and you have a four-car car elevator that you're building. You have offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, and you have hundreds of millions of dollars to your name, and you're trying to make the case for you being in touch with the average Joe. The issue for Mitt Romney is actually the issue for the president is on all those metrics, on likability, on compassion, setting aside compassion for the legal dreamers and the illegal dreamers, Mitt Romney is in trouble. The good news for Mitt Romney is that when you ask voters about the economy, there's a much closer margin there. And that's what the president has to sort of deal with in the next couple months, which is the difference parsing likability and trustworthiness. And for some reason, the American public, which I don't think has really scrutinized Mitt Romney or his economic policies, still thinks to some degree that he can be a steward of the economy. And the president has got to prove that wrong.
Well, Steve, the economy is a vaguer question than do you think you should raise taxes on people making over $1 million and so forth. And that's why I think that may be why Romney performs very, very close to the president, slightly better than the president in some polls on the economy, because there's something vague about that question.
Yeah, no, I think there's a couple things. I think the big challenge for Obama and for Democrats in the rest of this campaign is sort of marrying the arguments they're making now for tax fairness, for protecting the social safety net, for investing in education and these sorts of things, marrying that with the idea that this is not a moral question as much as this is an economic question. We are in this economic mess right now. If you want to get out of it, you need to provide for social mobility. You need to you got to deal with the deficit. You're going to have upper income people pay more in taxes because you're going to have to preserve these middle class sort of fortifying institutions. I think right now the way these things are presented, too often it plays to the Republican advantage, where they can look at the rhetoric that comes out from Obama and from Democrats and say, well, this is Robin Hood stuff. This is a moral, let's steal from the rich, let's redistribute the wealth. Obama has to make the case that this is central to growing the economy, just like the Republicans talk about.
Mitt Romney went in search of a friendly interview, which he could expect at CNBC. Larry Kudlow did the honors. There's Romney talking to the two Cadillac audience out there, and Kudlow threw him a curveball. Let's listen to this.
You yourself have been an investor. Are you surprised at how well the stock market has done? It's about doubled since early 2009. Are you surprised how well stocks have done? What do you think that means? What do you think that's saying?
Well, I've never been one that's tried to predict the stock market or even explain what's happening in the stock market. I think investors look at American industry and say that entrepreneurs and managers and inventors in America have continued to defy the odds, that they have made their businesses more productive, that they've been able to achieve higher levels of profitability.
What I love about this question and answer is that neither Larry Kudlow, my pal Larry Kudlow, nor Mitt Romney use the word Obama in a question. Larry says, since early 2009. Okay. You could say since President Obama has been president, the stock market has doubled. And, Alex, the word Obama doesn't appear in Mitt's answer.
Well, it doesn't appear when you're talking about a sort of rosy picture or any semblance of good news. I mean, one thing to be certain is that the stock market is not the American economy. That said, the Republican Party and specifically
CNBC thinks it is, though.
Well, I will refrain from comment on that analysis. But Mitt Romney and the Republican Party are constitutionally incapable of giving the president any credit for any kind of economic rebound, and so that comes as no surprise.
Steve, the overall number in the NBC poll is a 6-point gap. It's 49-43. We had the New York Times come out, I think, yesterday with a poll. It had them tied, 46, something like that. And so this is the one that has the widest margin, but all of these numbers are actually behaving within the margin of error of all those polls. When a poll comes out at 46, it has a margin of error where it could actually be 49 or 43. We haven't seen any have the margin of error flow to the point where Romney is the higher number.
Well, yeah, but I would say, too, the numbers are tighter now than they were a few weeks ago, tighter than a month ago. There were some polls a month ago that had Obama up double digits. So I think what's happened is the Republicans have sort of started to come home. Now that Romney's their presumptive nominee, you had this sort of conservative resistance, especially from sort of white evangelicals, especially white evangelicals in the South, who were kind of resisting. They're coming aboard now, but the catch is, if you really look deep in these numbers, you start asking them, okay, are you with Obama or are you with Romney? They're with Romney. Are you enthusiastic about Romney, or do you still have reservations about Romney? And you get like a 50% number among evangelicals for I have reservations about this guy. And so that's why I think, Romney's clear of the primary now, mostly, but he has to still worry about these people, and he's going to have to worry about them through the campaign, and that's going to force all sorts of uncomfortable issues and uncomfortable moments where he's got to choose between, I don't want to exacerbate these reservations, but I want to win over these swing voters who are essential to winning in the fall. And there's some impossible situations that will come along, I think.
And Alex, the president has ways of getting voters who are not single-issue voters that Romney doesn't have. I mean, if you aren't with the president on the economy, but he reminds you about where Osama bin Laden is now, and he reminds you about what the American troop level is in Iraq right now, that's the kind of thing that it seems to me can steer a voter back toward President Obama.
Sure. I mean, look, I will say you may be angry with the president if you're far on the left or far on the right, but he has been rather consistent. He may not have gotten everything done, but he has offered a broad vision and a series of principles for where he wants to take this country. And I think he will continue to lay out that vision in the coming months. And the issue with Mitt Romney is he has been anything but consistent. And so as voters turn their radios into the Romney dial, it's unclear whether they're going to stay on the station.
Steve, does the Romney campaign have any strategy other than more and Romney about how to humanize Mitt Romney?
Yeah, no,
when you look at the numbers inside these polls, it is a serious problem.
Well, no, and I think part of it too is there's the basic, Mitt Romney's biggest problem is Mitt Romney. I don't know if he can overcome being himself, if that's the basic challenge of the fall campaign. But another problem he has here, and I think that sort of contributes to this image, is what he's been forced to say and what he's been forced to do to win the Republican nomination. He's been forced to present himself in ways that are very unflattering to sort of the middle of the American electorate. So you would say, okay, logically here for a candidate like this, now's the time to make some sort of dramatic stand, maybe against your party base, against something unpopular you had to say. But that gets into what Alex is saying. The other thing that's driving his negative numbers now is the perception that the guy doesn't believe in anything and will say anything to get elected. So if he takes, the classic thing is the Sister Soldier moment with Bill Clinton. If Mitt Romney looks to have the equivalent of the Sister Soldier moment, it may just make the whole inauthentic thing that much worse because everybody's expecting him to do it.
Speaking of inauthentic, this thing about my father was born poor. He was born to a very prosperous family, in fact, in Utah. They then moved to Mexico in order to continue the practice of polygamy in Mexico. They then fled Mexico when the revolution came to Mexico. And yes, they had to leave some of their property behind, which they still owned, and Romney still own to this day. And when they got to this country, they got a deal, a welfare handout of $100,000 from the American government for Mormons who were displaced from Mexico. And so this, my father was born poor, he knows is a lie. I mean, why even try that?
Can we talk about the hair-trigger defense mechanism? Yeah. The president didn't, I mean, look, you can say he was sort of indicting Romney by saying he wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth, but take the comment in context. He was talking about getting a fair shot, which is very much part of his message, and he's talking about getting an education and having a chance. Somehow, Mitt Romney has taken this to be an indictment of his family and his personal wealth.
And the silver spoon thing is something politicians have used for decades before a Romney existed.
Well, can we say Obama himself used it to talk about Harry Reid, to talk about John Spratt, to talk about Kent Conrad. In the past 2 or 3 years, he has said this himself. And the other thing to keep in mind there is fine. You want to bring George Romney into this. Think about the message that Obama was trying to convey there. It was basically an affirmation of the social contract. Hey, I got ahead because there was a safety net in place that was there to propel me and my wife forward. George Romney was a liberal Republican who believed deeply in the social safety net, who supported education programs, who supported anti-poverty programs, public housing. Look what he did at HUD.
And palled around with Saul Alinsky.
Yeah, that's right.
Alex Wagner of Now and Steve Kornacki of Salon.com. You can pick up your plastic spoons on the way out of the studio. Thank you very much for joining me tonight.
Thanks, Lawrence.
Sure.